Welcome to Resilient Voices, Women Entrepreneurs Rising. Today, we are with Lindiwe Motha, and I'm your host, Nkhensane Maluleke. This podcast is about talking to inspirational women who have journeyed through adversity and ultimately built thriving businesses. Hi, Lindiwe, how are you?
I'm good, thanks. How are you?
I'm very, very good. It's very nice to meet you.
Lovely to meet you. Thank you for having me today.
Thank you for coming. So, Lindy.
Yes.
First question I have for you, because I think our audience needs a bit more background before we get into everything. I wanted to ask you to tell us the story of the transformation from young Lindy to Lindy who grows up and faces adversity. Of course, everyone faces adversity, but you have a particular story.
Yeah.
And then moving from then to the Lindy that is, now a powerhouse, someone in business.
Yeah.
Please tell us the story.
Okay. So I'm originally from Soweto. I grew up in Soweto, Orlando East, a bomb town. Back then it was very rough.
Is it?
Yeah, but I was such a softie. I've always been a softie. And that stems from the fact that I was very skinny. I was being bullied. And never in my wildest dream did I think I'd be in business. Never in my wildest dreams did I think that I would actually, start a business and run a business or community projects, Growing up, I used to look up to a particular lady who was a flight attendant. She was bold, she was confident, and she would walk with the bag. And I would always look at her and think, wow, one day, I want to do that. So fast forward, but the reality is that at the time I never had half of the confidence that she had.
I see.
Because of the bullying. And even though at the time it felt like what the people used to say to me, it didn't affect me, but in retrospect it did affect, even how I looked at myself. Because I didn't look like other people. I was very, very bony.
Okay.
So my confidence levels were very low. And, growing up with that and, thinking it's a norm, it's normal, and you continue living life like that. I then got myself into a very terrible relationship. Getting into that relationship, I think I was looking for that love and affirmation and validation that I needed to give myself first. And I looked for it from somebody else. And initially, it was there until it wasn't there. It was there until I was then being told what to do, told who to speak to, who not to speak to. And it went, from love to 100% abuse, And it was, I think at that point, I've always been a Christian. I grew up in church. So it was at that point when I was praying, I was like, Lord, if you really want me in this relationship, keep me. But if you don't, then just give me a sign. Give me a sign. And the signs were there. I was just ignoring them. But it got to a point where I was really tired and I left. I left. And that was the beginning of the unfolding of who I am today.
Yes.
And this was 16 years ago. And it's just been a journey of really unfolding and, finding who I am. From that, I then went for my dream. I became a flight attendant. That did help a lot with the confidence because when you are there, everyone is just looking at you. Everyone is trusting that you know what you're doing.
Absolutely.
And you know what you're doing.
Absolutely.
So you need to stand firm on business.
Yes.
So that's really helped me. And the training and everything else that goes on with being a flight attendant, so that helped me grow out of my shell as well. And I was also doing counseling. And I think that's where my love for people grew as well, wanting to help the people the same way that I've been helped. So I then went into doing a course for counseling on how to counsel people in the church, because there's a lot of broken people in the church. I was one of them. So from that, I then started trying different things. I've always been adventurous as well. I was selling products. I was doing network marketing. I was doing so many things. And all of that contributed to the person that I am right now. Like I was saying earlier, I still feel like I'm an onion. When you peel an onion, you remove the first layer and then there's another layer. And then you remove that layer and then you find another layer. So, I just keep discovering myself even as I grow.
You keep blooming,
I
really.
keep blooming.
Into something new.
Yeah.
I love that. I love that you tell me the story about the flight attendant.
Yeah.
So it was that you then went to do that for yourself.
Yeah.
And I know that they teach you decorum and, as you said, boldness and how to carry yourself in a specific way. And I think then combining that with your love for people and doing counseling, you know, drawing from two different parts of yourself and making it something that informs who you are and what you do today. I think that's really, really beautiful. And I want to ask you, you know, in this journey, what role does the resilience that you had to develop, or the resilience that you already had maybe, throughout this very abusive relationship, what role did that play in you blooming into who you are today outside of what you could have done yourself, you know? So how much did that influence the blooming?
I think my biggest motivator was my son. The fact that
You have a son?
I have a son, and we unfortunately, you know, broke off the engagement 6 months after he was born. That's when I left. But he was my biggest motivator. More than anything else, I've always said to myself, I want to do it for myself. But wanting to do it for yourself also, you start hearing voices, you start remembering when you come across an obstacle, when you come across a challenge, you start remembering those words when somebody said to you, you'll never amount to anything. You start remembering those words that were spoken to you saying you're not good enough. And I had to find something that was bigger than myself. And my son was my biggest motivator. And having attended counseling as well, when you know, it was as if I'm looking at myself from outside of myself, how I used to be before, how timid I used to be before, and now how I can just stand and stand on what I believe in and, you know, go for what I think is right and go for what I want to do without being influenced by anybody else. And not only for myself, but for my son as well, because now I make decisions for somebody else.
It's a non-negotiable.
It's non-negotiable, and he's relying on me.
Absolutely.
So that really pushed me. But when I looked at myself outside of myself, then I realized that there's more people who were actually looking at me, transforming, becoming this person that they too didn't think I was. You know, at some point I was defined by the kind of partner that I had. And now they're seeing me stand on my own. They're seeing me do things on my own. And, you know, more people, when I saw that it was actually impacting more and more people, I then thought, shoo, I can't stop now. If I stop now, that 19-year-old or 21-year-old who's gone through the same thing that I've gone through, what's going to happen to them?
What's going to happen to them?
Who's going to encourage them? Who's going to understand them? Because I kid you not, even at some point, social workers did not understand what I was going through. At some point, even the police, when you go to report, they did not understand because they thought you are one of those who will tomorrow cancel the case.
You know?
So I needed to stand and look outside of myself and say, okay, initially, it was about me. Initially, it was about me doing the things that I want to do, reaching the goals that I want to reach. But now it's far beyond me.
I really love that you've been through counseling. It really touches on another episode we're going to have soon called Healing Through Hustle. So I wanted to ask you, since you're in the space of I'm trusting Lindy, I'm listening to Lindy, how does partnership look? Do conflicts arrive sometimes where you feel a little bit triggered and taken back to a place where, you know, you're stripped of your autonomy? Or is it something that through counseling has been easy for you? Please just talk to us about that a little bit.
So, you know, healing is a journey.
Yes.
And sometimes you think that you have healed until that trigger comes. And then you're like, why is this upsetting me?
I know I shouldn't be upset.
I know I shouldn't be upset because I've forgiven. But, you know, one thing about healing and that journey and triggers is that you heal until it doesn't hurt anymore. You forgive until it doesn't hurt anymore, until you remember and it doesn't hurt anymore. I've recently had a terrible trigger, and I found myself crying. I was right there, and this gentleman is opposing me, and I'm thinking, but there's no need for this because we are in the same direction. We in alignment. We can just just maybe agree to disagree, but we basically saying the same thing. Let's do this. And tears were just running down my face, and I thought, sure. Okay, because at that moment I remember looking at how I felt at that moment, and I felt the same way that I felt about 18 years ago, 19 years ago, when I was told that you can't make decisions, you're stupid, you can't think. And I thought, no, I have to stand. I have to stand for what I believe in now, because what we're discussing was not, it was not off. I wasn't derailing
For sure.
from what we're getting into in agreement with. Just partnership is so important. You cannot do life alone. There's a slogan that I go by now that don't do life alone. You absolutely cannot do life alone because you don't know it all.
Absolutely.
And where you fall short, that might be somebody else's strength. And sometimes partnership even comes as opposition, like in the instance with the gentleman. We ended up working so well together, and we just eventually, after the project was done, we then came to an agreement that, sure, it was a bumpy beginning,
yes,
but it ended off very well. And partnerships helped me a lot, both from females and males. I've heard previously that, sometimes people say that working with females is difficult. It's not difficult.
You are in my brain right now. She's in my brain right now, because the very next question I wanted to ask you is, you explain this scenario of it's a gentleman and you experience a trigger. And perhaps it being a gentleman is also something that plays a bigger part in the trigger as opposed to had that conflict been with another woman, And there's this perception that women are too emotional or women are difficult to work with. And I wanted to ask from you, in your experience collaborating and partnering with women, is that true?
Yes and no.
Okay.
And the yes comes from how you receive it. So if you are a victim in your story, if you are always ready to attack, if you are always, if you always feel like, oh, but she never liked me, she doesn't like my idea. If you always take things personal, then it becomes difficult.
Okay.
So the key to it is to understand that it's not necessarily about you, but about the project at hand, about what needs to be done right now, about the end goal. So sometimes, yes, we want to be difficult. Sometimes, you want your point to go across. You want things to be done your way. But in order to achieve the bigger goal, you need to look outside of yourself again. You need to put yourself aside, put your pride aside. Once we put our prides aside, it usually just works out very well. There's always going to be challenges everywhere. But your perception and how you receive the challenge is what will determine whether it will work or not. So it can work, but it depends with how you receive it. Because even with females, you get, well, do you know who I am?
Of course.
And then you're like, do you know who I am?
It works both ways.
It works both ways. And somebody will say to you, I've accomplished, I've done. You're like, okay, great. So the project right now is. So are you going to be able to do this? Because what you've done in the past is great and well, but what needs to be done now is this. So
can we deliver?
Yes. And it's just really putting your pride aside and how you receive certain things. And sometimes when you see everyone's pride is up, everyone is all up in arms, then you just calm down, because what is the vision? For me, it's always about the end goal. What do we want to achieve? Do I want to be right, or do we need the project to be done? Do I want to be right, or do we need people to be saved? Do I want to be right? What is more important, me being right, or me getting my point across, or is it the other person on the other end who's receiving? The person at the end of it all who has nothing to do with the process but is receiving and what we are putting together. So for me, it's always about that.
Please tell me a bit more about the CPF and your community building initiatives.
Yes.
Yes, please.
So I've had to change where I currently live. And when I got there, I thought, wow, this is such a beautiful place. But there's too many young people lingering around, not doing anything. And it bothered me so much. So I then started introducing cleanup campaigns, because everyone is complaining about the government, not doing this, not doing that, but who's doing something about it?
Yes.
Nobody's doing anything about it. So I was like, okay, let's organize a Saturday in the morning for 2 hours, and let's clean our own streets. And that's how it all started. It started with the fact that I was driving and I was trying to get out of the area and I could not see because the grass was so tall.
Wow.
And I was like, no,
this can't work.
This does not work. It might cause an accident. And now it's a project that is just ongoing. We've even had politicians come and try to be a part of it, but it's not about politics. So I've had to, even with that, even with that, somebody said to me, oh, but you could have just accepted their offer. They were going to pay you every month. But I'm like, is it about that? Because then the minute other things start coming in, then I'm being silenced again. And I do not want my voice to be silenced. I have my vision. I have my goal. And it is to get also young people, to get them to have confidence in themselves.
Absolutely.
To get them to want to do things for themselves and not want to wait for somebody else to do things for themselves. So that's how, and that's what I'm doing right now. I think one of the biggest quotes that motivated me as well, even when I was going through my healing journey, was that be the change that you want to see. If you want positive things around you, don't expect somebody else to bring them for you.
Yes.
Build them if you must. Build them if you must. Bring and be that change that you want to see. And believe it or not, as much as you see how I look right now,
yeah,
I roll up my sleeve and I do it.
I completely believe
I
you.
don't do it, then they're not going to do it. If they don't see me there, then they're not going to be there. And I think that is what has motivated them so much to even do it without me now. To organize themselves and just do it without me. Yeah.
So I'm going to throw you a curveball question as our last question. Okay. So we know that young Lindiwe is a flight attendant.
Yeah.
Okay. And the woman we see before us today now is the flight attendant to other people, to many people, in the community. I want to know, the girl that you describe as the one that was bullied, the young girl that looked in the mirror and saw what everyone else was saying, that wanted to be bold but didn't know how, and would kind of take traits they admire from strangers, I want to know, she walks into the room right now. What is the very first thing you tell her?
Sure.
Wait, sorry, I think that was too easy. I'm gonna make it a bit more complex because I know you're very, she's finished. So, when I say the very first thing you tell her, I would like to know a motivational one. Yeah. But also something like, what's the very first thing you could pinpoint to it to be like, can you believe this? What's the, to that girl,
So my initial answer was going to be, you are enough.
I knew you were going to go
enough. And I think this is a sad thing about also our society right now and the communities that we live in. We wear so much makeup, we wear this, we wear that. And if you are not this image, you feel like you're not enough. So I would tell her that she's enough. There's so much potential for you. There's so many people who are waiting for you to show up. Just show up. You don't have to figure it out. Just take the first step. You don't have to figure it out. You don't have to know it all. Take the first step and believe in what you have. You are enough. You don't need any additions. You don't need any makeup. You don't need any
filters.
You are enough just as you are.
I love that.
And I think it's a reminder for me where I am as well right now, that I'm enough where I am.
Absolutely.
And, you know, for all of us, that we are enough. You know, people go as far as cosmetic surgery to be what they are not. And who they are is more than enough. You know, we are unique. We are peculiar. When God created us, all of us as individuals, there was a need for Lindy.
Absolutely.
There was a need for Lindy, who was bullied, and that need was for her to even come out of that and show other people who are being bullied that you can come out of that. You know, there's a need even in the corporate space to say, from this timid person who could not speak, now you can come out and, you know, and speak boldly and make sense, and people listen to what you're saying. So we are enough. You are enough. I am enough. You are enough. Lindy, the 9-year-old, she's enough.
She's enough.
She's enough. Yeah.
Well, that was our episode. Thank you so much for tuning in. I think our big takeaway is that everyone really is enough. Lindiwe Motha, thank you so much for coming. It's been wonderful having you here. I hope to see you soon.
Thank you for having me. I look forward to seeing you again.